What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Naoshi here, and welcome to another episode of The Pilot Mindset. We are doing something a little bit differently today, just because I know with my previous top 10 mobile suits, we've always gone into a list and given some ups and downs regarding that, but I am joined by the legendary, wow, I am a loss for words, because he is the master of ceremonies, legendary pilot, Red Wolf Vion. Vion, say hi to the chat. Just kidding.
What's up? Anyways, and your intro, man.
Yeah, I know. I need to work on that. Anyways, sorry. I was just like, legendary. Oh, wow.
Like, you know, when you use words like that, it puts a lot of pressure. Like, oh, psych. I'm just kidding, bro. We're here to have fun. And that's what we're going to do.
Yep, definitely. So I have in my hands here a top 10 list, technically 11, regarding support types. I know a lot of people have been asking about this. I know we've been kind of discussing amongst ourselves on certain things. Technically, this is more my list, but I know you might have some opinions and some particular takes on, you know, what would be possibly a better replacement, something that would be not only accessible to the newer player base, but like anybody that's learning the game, but also wanting to kind of ease themselves into the support role and in sort of the best way possible, you know, getting some of those good habits going to help out their team and everything. So now that we got the janky introductions out of the way, let's go to our first suit in the technically 10th and 11th, even though this is supposed to be top 10. I have the MS-12 GIGAN, the Gundam killer, but in recent updates, we've had a lot of suits that were space only now being able to be utilized on ground maps, and I feel like the GM cannon space assault type definitely fits into that niche. I'm kind of torn for that top 10 slot. To lead off with the GIGAN, it's still, I would say to a certain extent, still considered one of the meta supports of that cost. It is a 200 cost native. It goes all the way up to 400. And especially if you have overtuned parts, that suit is just nasty. Because it's one of the few tank suits that actually has balancers. So if you're feeling very froggy and very aggressive, you can actually get some quick knockdowns on people and, you know, follow up with that nice, lovely, chunky cannon shot. Whereas the GM Space Assault that recently just got ground affinity now, or ground usage rather, that suit, when compared to its native suit, the regular GM cannon, this one actually has a bazooka as its primary versus, say, a machine gun or the spray gun. At the same time, like, you have basically, with the Space Assault, you have two dedicated stuns, your cannon and your bazooka. You still get a sub-weapon spray gun, even though it's not as many shots as the primary version of that. It still chonks. And then you get Vulcans, and it has a shield at the expense of lower HP. So HP pull right now for, like, say, if we're comparing 300 cost, just because the Space Assault natively is a 250 suit, you're looking at, I think it's about 10k or so, 12k for the regular GM cannon, and then the Space Assault is about 8,500. So it's pretty much in the ballpark range of the GM command when it was originally at the beginning of GGO2 at its native cost of 250. It is kind of fragile, to say the very least. But at the same time, you also have less range power natively, so you have to not only bump out the firepower a little bit to kind of offset the ballistic resistances that some of these suits have when you're fighting against them. You also have to worry about the fact that it has not a lot of HP either, which is kind of scary to think about, especially when you're getting counter sniper, you're getting guys shooting back at you that aren't necessarily the raid, which can kind of, you know, it can kind of shrug off a little bit, but not nearly as much, especially when everybody's concentrating on you. So
the GM Cannon Space Assault type, right? Let's compare the level 2. Because I think level 2 is 300 and the level 3 GIGAN at 300 cost. Or even if, let's drop to the natives, right?
Right.
The thing I definitely noticed at these suits is one has a shield.
Right.
And if you are familiar with particular combat, having a large shield can help because it's going to take what I forgot how much the HP the shield has off the top of my head. It's probably like
for
2,000.
1 year war stuff. Well, for a lot of the 1 year war stuff, it's usually like 4,500. It's a little on the smaller side because even Grandpa, Grandpa Gundam, its regular base shield is 4,500 or so, or 4,000.
Yeah, okay.
It's on the smaller side of things.
Yeah,
approximately.
So the Space Assault type level 1 at 250 shield is, and I just checked it, it is 2,500 HP, right? So I know we do have that dip of having like 8k at level 1, but I mean the offset, if you can carefully position yourself during combat to have your shield being targeted, that might also prolong your life. So I look at it like this, right? So although our HP isn't as much, we do have shield HP, but to maximize the usage of it, you have to be a player that can utilize or kind of either bait shots or maneuver your suit to the right so your left side gets shot first.
Yeah, left facing.
Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise they can destroy you and your shield can be still complete. Versus the GIGAN, you don't have a shield. You have more HP to roll with, literally, but you don't have a shield. And I think GIGAN naturally
is a smaller target too.
Yes,
so,
correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. So, me personally, however, I'll be honest, I've always preferred the Space Assault type over the GIGAN in space. And now, like you said, it's on ground, which is really cool. It is only, honestly, a personal preference for me. It's the fact that it's a biped suit. You mentioned balancers. A Space Assault type doesn't have balancers. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
You do have, again, I think you have high spec and back, but again, that's more of a space ability.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, do I really want to, concern myself with that? But personally, my preference has lied in the kit. Like you said, having my main weapon being a rocket bazooka with a range of 350. You have eight rounds in it. I'm a fan of that versus a machine gun as my primary, because a lot of some people complain, some people cry, but in the day you have to be very mindful, because when you're in these smaller pools, using a machine gun is very dangerous as well. So I think it comes to personal preference, unless you have a team full of a lot of machine gun users. I mean, 3 machine gun users, GIGAN, you can destroy someone. Even they get one stun off on you. If you're focus firing as a team, you're good. But I feel like the Space Assault can kind of stand out on its own with the rocket bazooka and having that rocket cannon, which I am a fan of. The range itself, I don't believe it is as far as GIGAN's cannon, but it's good enough for me between the next 15 meters. And you have the beam spray gun, which, I mean, it goes out after 3 shots.
Yeah, overheat. Straight to overheat after 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and you have Vulcan's beam spray gun, the rocket cannon, and your main rocket bazooka. So I feel like your arsenal has a little bit more variety opposed to having just the Vulcan, the cannon, and the Gatling machine gun. Yeah. But again, I won't knock either of these choices, Alshi. Honestly, it's really hard because I feel like it comes down to preference outside of balancers. Because let's face it, if you're a support at 300 or at 250, you never want someone to get in close on you. Like,
well, if you do, you're already dead anyway. So
exactly.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is it's like the kit wise, like I like both suits and I've had a lot of fun with them. I mean, the amount of shenanigans I've been pulling with the GIGAN is quite legendary. But when you look at both of them in terms of like versatility, like the one thing that caught my attention with the Space Assault is now that it's usable on ground, it's actually a lot faster than most normal supports that might have better range or harder hitting like attributes, like the next suit that we'll talk about in a bit. because I don't want to tangent too far. But it's very versatile, because if you have a very aggressive team, it's not lugged down to 90 walking speed like the regular GM cannon. Like the GM cannon itself at 300, if we're talking 300 being like the lowest benchmark there, you're already at level 4, level 5, so chances are you're running overtuned parts, but then at the same time you do have such an expanded space to pick and pull whatever parts you want to throw in there that it's a glass cannon anyways. So if you're going to be a glass cannon, why not have the maneuverability to match too? Yeah. So that's why I'm kind of torn between the GIGAN and this recent edition pet. I didn't even plan on getting into that mix there, because they kind of do similar things, but they have their own niches as far as like the best situation for that suit, like how they do certain things well versus how the suit does with things well. So it's kind of like what you said. It's, you know, kind of depends on the situation at hand, what you feel like playing, essentially. And, you know, in a game that centers around stuns, I think as much I'm more leaning towards the GIGAN, but I can't ignore the space assault. Right. I know you have your preferences in that regard, so I think that's a good place to close up that one. Jumping into our next category, like I was saying, we have the MSO5L ZAKU 1 sniper type. This is a 300 cost native, which would essentially be, if we're talking, you know, the GIGAN being a native 200, the space assault being 250. Number 9 would be this one right here, being the next cost up. Now, the reason why it's on there is it is slower than the two suits that we previously mentioned, one getting an honorable mention, but most lower cost suits typically have a 90 walking speed. So this one, from my brief time playing around with it, it has good decent range if you're running the beam rifle that natively comes with. It is something that reaches out and touches somebody and stuns them, I believe, compared to the Federation equivalent, I would say, at this cost, the GM Sniper Custom. But and you also get the Sturm, which I think readies up a little bit on the slower side. It takes a minute. It's not an instant swap usage, so you do have a means of kind of self-defense. You have Vulcans that you can use while you're boosting, but one of the big weaknesses on this suit is maneuverability. So you have to kind of almost essentially be kind of in the best position to be not only supportive of your team, but away from the action, so you're not like in the way of the enemy, just kind of being a liability, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you have to be far removed from, I would say, the action. I know you can actually switch to the Magalia top cannon with that, but I will say, even if you switch to that or the long barrel machine gun, I still think it boasts decent range. But let's, for the sake of argument, using the beam sniper rifle, you mentioned it wants to be bright. It has like 800 or 850 range on its beam rifle. If you're a patient player and you don't let it overheat after, the first 2 shots, you're going to be a very destructive force on the battlefield, because at that range of 850 meters, if your aim is good, you're going to be able to hit almost anyone within your view, like without question. And having that stun, regardless from where you're at, I look at, when I'm playing a support suit with long range stuns, what can I do to help my generals or my raids to move in on an enemy? Can I stun someone so they can capitalize off of it? Can I finish somebody? Can I save somebody by stunning someone who's being chased, or who's chasing? And the Stormfiles, I think a lot of players forget the reason why it's a good defense up close at times is because it shoots from the opposite side that most mobile suits shoot from. And so it kind of catches people off guard at times, and it requires them to kind of prepare themselves to dodge a different direction. And to this day, I'll still get hit with a Stormfiles here and there. Just pay attention. Even though it's a slow shift, it's something that this suit has, and it's a luxury to have that, because it stops a lot of targets. And then I know the sniper type, I don't know if it always had it, but I'm pretty sure it has the ability, when you're crouching, you're less likely to to be staggered. So if you're sniping and someone trying to counter snipe you, they're going to have a little bit more harder time staggering you, as long as you're crouching. But again, I think the trade-off is you can't do tackles or something like that. It's like the stabilization ground device or something like that. And so that's one thing that's really, really good. And you also get a plus 5% when you're crouching on the ground with that suit too. It has that ability as well, which I really like that kind of stuff. And going back to your point, it kind of encourages snipe play, which you can do, standing close to your teammates, but why would you want to put yourself in that risk of danger to be targeted 300 meters where you could be safely 700 meters out, successfully popping people?
Well, I think one of the big things too is it's like, the beam rifle has range. It has a good amount of damage too. I think what prevents it is from doing more is a combination of the heat rate, and like you said, whoever's running it that way has to have really good aim too. Like, you can't really afford to whiff shots either, because that hesitation is gonna kind of reflect badly on your team, as far as like, well, I'm not making my shots, so my team is suffering.
Absolutely.
So it's like, basically you're playing a man down because you're the man down. At the same time, I think that's why people run, like, say, the Magella top. I do feel like in certain instances, like, say, depending on the map, the long barrel machine gun can work, but because it's a slower moving support, that does pose a little more risks. And, essentially, you kind of have to be very aware of where your teammates are and where the enemy is, especially if, like, say, they're running any type of stealth-based suits. Any type of close range maps like City Ruins or Delaware Colony as an example, or not Delaware Colony. I'm thinking space. Colony Drop. That one is a mess too. So so it's definitely something that to bear in mind. But like, I know just playing a few rounds with it, like it's definitely got a niche at lower cost. Not so much, I would say, at 400, because with the current ecosystem that is at that cost, there's a lot of different options as far as something that's a little more mobile, or has does the same niche a little bit better too. So going to number 8, this one's I wouldn't necessarily say this is my favorite, but I'd say I had a fun time with it. You might know this one as well. But the RGM-79 SC GM Sniper Custom ML. And
I love this suit.
And not the regular custom either. The reason why I picked this one, this is a 350 native, because basically, like, I think I mentioned it before, I like suits that have balancers, especially coming from a player that predominantly plays generals. Having some of that sort of general gameplay to kind of help you out in certain situations. I'm not saying you should go frontline with the suit. I'm saying in certain situations that you might find yourself in, to essentially counteract an enemy position or counteract an enemy, action. Balancers definitely help out, and this is one of the big ones that actually have that. But this kit over the regular Sniper Custom, in comparison, gives you a little bit more to play with. I mean, granted, you can still run the sniper rifle that it comes with. This is almost kind of like the same discussion as the Space Assault. This one actually is able to run the Hyper Bazooka. So not only do you have balancers, you still have the arm sabers that the regular Sniper Custom has, and you have a bazooka to initiate that stun. On top of that, even more, you have the missile launchers that it comes with. Granted, the reload time is not the greatest, but to kind of help soften up the enemy, it is sort of a close to mid-line type of weapon, and it's really nice to kind of help out, especially when you're cycling through your beam pistols, your Vulcans, and I think it has Vulcans. Sorry, I'm having a blank there, and then you have the missile launchers to kind of help out with that.
Yeah, I was going to add, so when I first started playing the game, and when, Sniper Custom was a thing, I loved Sniper Custom. So when I saw ML come out, I was like, oh, we got missile launchers now? And it feels like for all intents and purposes, it is an improvement from the 300 Sniper Custom to the 350. I believe it's a natural 350 cost.
Yeah.
It's awesome because you use the same primary weapon. The numbers, the stats are pretty much on par, if not better, even. And it's enough for me to be like, oh, this is my suit. This is my suit with missile launchers. Like, thanks for giving me an upgrade, Bandai. Like, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I will say that unlike the previous suit we spoke about, though, this suit does not stagger on straight up hit though with the beam rifle. And like you said, some people will actually use the rocket bazooka in some of their builds and do a little bit more mid range. I generally prefer long range with this suit and mid only if I need to, simply because that beam rifle, the heat rate was like, it's over 50%. So if you have to be very patient, but if you charge it and you get a shot off, not only does it destroy legs real good, but it staggers. This is why I think this suit shines from afar when it comes to destroying legs. The missile launchers, you said, dude, it's very close. Not as close as the Vulcans, but this suit has a very nice rotation, man. You go your main weapon, you go missile launchers, or you can go your main weapon, beam gun, missile launchers, Vulcans, or even your beam saber. And this suit also has, I think it has melee priority 2 even.
No, it's still melee 1, sorry. I wish it was 2.
Is it
it's still 1.
Is it?
It's still 1.
Okay.
Yeah. That's coming from a guy that has some very bad habits and has to find out the hard way. Yeah, it's still 1.
Yeah,
so,
let's check that. I think ML has 2. The original one has 2. It's weird, but either way, stuff like that is kind of important, because it also, like you said, it rolls with balancers. So that's something really, really, really fun to play with. Very versatile.
One thing to add on to that is, yeah, it may have priority 1, but like the thing to keep in mind, like I tell a lot of folks here, is don't rely on the priority too much. Look for those opening. If you know somebody has rolled and he's not going to try to swing back at you, you can just stun and downswing. So. And the thing is it's got it's like a thrusting action that it has. So it's just, people underestimate the reach on this suit. So even if you don't necessarily want to downswing it, right? You want to keep them up or something, or try to juggle them with your other weapons, you can definitely do that as well. One thing to note before we move along is that the ML natively does not have high resistances. I think they're straight 10s across the board. So
yeah, they are.
Granted, I know a lot of folks don't really look into that too much as far as like, oh, I should throw this into it, or I throw enough to kind of ease that ADD that I have, because seeing flat 10s at a lower cost suit is just like, it needs to be at like 13 or 15, then I'll call it a day, because it's just like, just flat 10s. I was like, this isn't a 300 cost or lower suit. No. Like, granted, I could throw something else in there, but it's just like, it's just only enough to satisfy my attention on that. So, but go ahead.
The thing about that suit is, I think I had to pull it up again. Yeah, so it was 10-10 ballistic beam, but melee resistance was actually 16, I believe.
Yeah.
Let me check, because I'm looking at stuff and like I don't want to look at the reinforcement or the enhancement, but overall, I mean, again, you're playing a sport, you don't want anyone up close to you, but I feel as if it's in a nice spot. But it definitely comes down to your playstyle. Be very versatile with it and experiment with the suit, because I feel like experiment with the suit will definitely help pay off.
One thing I want to interject with that as well is like the beam rifle, like it may not stun on like just tap firing, but it does a lot of damage. And I don't know what the build stun is on that, but you can combine other weapons to kind of stop people in their tracks, especially if they're walking to you. And they don't have maneuver armor, so it definitely helps out quite a bit. So just something to kind of keep in mind as we go through like the list here. Like for anybody that's new to the game or kind of still learning like their role, especially when it comes to the sports, is you can combine different weapons to kind of get results with that stuff. So anyways, jumping to number 7. This is I don't know if this is a fan favorite, but the RGC-83 GM Cannon 2. The thick boy from 0083. This is a 400 cost native. Yeah, it's 400 cost native, and I believe this comes recommended by GBO2 as a beginner-friendly suit. Now, I would say they're half right on that. Mainly because it's a point-and-shoot type of suit. Your beam cannons, you just aim and fire, and hopefully both of your beams hit. And that's the kicker. Both your beams have to hit. It kind of suffers from the same issue as some of the suits out there that have dual cannons. I'm looking at you, Dom Cannon, and some other ones out there where you only get partial hits. So there's that. It also has a very unforgiving heat rate and overheat rating. And the suit only gets the GM rifle, which I don't think they've buffed recently.
I don't think so.
Vulcans and a saber. So
yeah,
in a sense. So here's the thing. Here's the thing.
All right.
The reason why it's still I still kind of throw it up there. Granted, we could say the sniper custom that we just talked about, the ML, would probably be a little bit easier. But the thing is, if you build this right, you can still do work with this. You just have to be very mindful with your heat management. If anything, I would say for sure they're right in the sense of this is a suit that you want to train with as far as learning heat management. Because if you don't, it's going to bite you in the ass. 20 seconds is a very long time in a GBO2 match.
It is. It's a very long time. And the thing is, the suit is off the bat, you'll notice, we were like 10, 10, 16 regarding the resistance. This suit has like 27 resistance for ballistic and beam. That's really good. It being a support around that 400 cost. The HP itself is, still not bad because it has more HP than some of the other suits at its cost. So it's a very rewarding suit should you play it right. And although the shorter beam cannons are meant to be long range, I feel like you need to be closer to mix in your GM rifle shots with your beam cannon, honestly. And like you said, the downside is you have to learn these cannon shots. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on half that damage, as well as how you have to properly lead certain cannon shots, because like you said, some suits in this game they have the double cannons. Not only do you have to stop to fire, but you risk, if you do it too early or you do it too late, you risk the problem where people are going to miss half their shots when it sucks. And that can be a huge change between life and death, or even saving an ally, or surviving.
Absolutely, because like the GM Cannon 2, right? So the thing too is that compared to the ML that we were just talking about, this goes back from I think 120 moving speed to 90. So we're going from I would say a suit that can keep up with the front line to a suit that's now back to its sort of niche of being that sort of typical slow support suit that really relies on being at the right place at the right time. But also to interject too, the GM rifle has an effective range of 350 meters, which is not nearly at the same distance as the cannons, but you also have to watch out for that spread too, like just mag dumping with the rifle. A lot of your shots aren't going to hit.
ASL, right?
It has ASL, but the problem is that at distance, if you're firing at distance, it still spreads, and some of those hits don't work very well. And ASL kind of also counteracts too, especially if you're trying to go for like vital parts, like the legs, for example. That can definitely be counterproductive as well.
No, you're right, and that's a thing to keep in mind when you're picking this suit. Personally, I've not used that suit all that much, simply because the kit itself doesn't really scream out to me as much as some of the other suits. But I definitely see value, this being like very beginner friendly in terms of, I think you mentioned with the ZAKU sniper, like these are good suits to come in and not only learn the game, learn the suits and how you have to be patient with some of your shots, how to strategize. And like, okay, I can't take 2 shots back to back. That's going to burn me out. I got to rotate with my team, or I have to, cycle my rotation with my weapons. And I kind of like that, honestly, because like you said, it's very important to have good habits starting off, because it's a lot harder to, teach yourself out of bad habits, which we've all learned good and bad habits prior. And it's a pain.
Well, I was going to say not just bad habits, but getting greedy. Like if you're getting success and like say your team's got the forward momentum, accidentally overheating, like I said earlier, 20 seconds is a very long time. So if your beam cannons are out of commission, running around with Vulcans, your only saber, which is priority 1, and then the GM rifle that, it does decent damage, but the build stun I don't think is quite there. Like you have to kind of combo off of everything else or off of your team. It does kind of leave you in sort of a pickle. So just something that I would definitely say if anybody wants to kind of, branch off of that and start using that suit, it's something that is going to teach you the ways of not, mismanaging your heat, especially if the kit itself is all centered around that too. And that's the tough part, which we'll get into the next suit, because that one's going to be really, really flexible, I would say. So jumping into number 6, we have the MS09K2. This is the Dom Cannon twin cannon type, 350 native. Now, the reason why I rate this significantly higher is not because it has superior range, but like with most Dom type mobile suits, this thing has, I think, a hovering speed. I wanted to say walking, but it hovers. I think it hovers at 135, even though the boosting speed is not nearly as fast as some of the other supports out there. I think for most 1-year war stuff, it caps out about 170, 180, unless it's high spec. But the thing is that repertoire, right? Dom Cannon, twin type. I think you can run the ZAKU machine gun on the other variant as well, which unfortunately I'll just give it an honorable mention. But typically you're running, I think, the giant bazooka on this one. I think there's another bazooka that runs, but I run that.
The high mobility bazooka launcher.
So you run that with the twin cannons, and you have, I think, cracker grenades and the missile launchers that have a very, very fast reload. I think near the same reload time as the Uma Lightning GELGOOG. Honorable
10-second cooldown or reload, I believe. So
like the range for the cannons, I think, are at 400. So it's basically midlining a lot. But at the same time, like if you have a team that's decent, this, what is it, 2 dedicated stuns and a lot of different things to chuck at the enemy. So you're not running out of things to do, essentially. This is why I think this is where it should be, why it's definitely up there. For sure.
I'm actually going to agree with you. And then again, surprise, another suit I used sparingly, especially when it came out. But its kit itself, having that launcher in the middle cannon, mid-range, is very powerful. Because that's going to do one of 2 things. That's going to either force the enemy team to focus you down, assuming it's a straight team fight and flat surface, whatever. They're either going to have to focus you down because you're going to be a big interference. Having the ability to stun one person, look to this guy and stun them, you just opened up 2 enemies to be taken advantage of. You know what I'm saying? So like at that, they're gonna have to work to shut you down, and your team is going to have the ability to either make sure you're protected enough to help them out, or you're going to actually scare the team into withdrawing. And it's a perfect world, perfect scenario. Things always change, but this is the kind of suit that's really annoying. If I was playing this suit as another support and I was facing an enemy team, I definitely would try to break its legs as soon as possible, simply because the dangers it can throw on the battlefield. Not only do you have those 2 stuns, you have the grenades and the missiles you're talking. Those missiles coming back to 10 seconds, that's really quick. I like to play this suit close range to mid range.
And that's basically where like the suit really excels, is that close to mid range, right? Like not right on top of your front line, but like near enough to where your effective ranged weapons are kind of overlapping on whatever you're fighting. So like, oh yeah, you got the stun off. Okay, cool. My cannons are there. Oh, my team's getting into melee. I want to contribute damage. I can throw grenades. I can shoot the rockets on there, the missiles, do whatever I need to do. And you know, by the time I'm done, you know, something else is already readied up and good to go. So
yep. It's also good because at 350, that's when you start getting more aggressive raids to contend with. And so being further away from your team can put you at a disadvantage at times. So being able to not only possibly stun a raid or staying with your team so you're less likely to be picked off with a raid. But again, my personal take, just keep that in mind when you're selecting this suit around this cost. I think it's a formidable foe.
The only thing, like, one thing to note, or several things rather, sorry, is I think it does have leg buffers too, or leg, not bouncers, sorry. Leg buffers to kind of shrug off some of that leg mitigation, because I know that's going to be like the easiest way to kind of disable this thing. But obviously if it's fighting a raid, that's not going to matter that much, but it can kind of shrug that off a little bit. And then I think the resistances are pretty high for this as well.
1919 for ballistic and beam, and you have 8 melee resistance,
which is normal.
Yeah, it's at this point it's normal, but like its base HP was it 4,000? Excuse me, 14. It was around 14, which is still really nice around 350. Because again, you're contending with suits that are starting to get bulkier and a lot more dangerous.
Yep, definitely. So, jumping into our next tier, or next placement, number 5 is the RX-81 FC, the G-Line Full Custom, native 450. So, I know people have mentioned how easy this thing is, mainly because it too also has twin beam cannons, it has Vulcans, it also has, I think, balancers and a very nasty melee. And then I think it can utilize the G-Line beam rifle. I'm not sure if it's the standard or the raid version of that, because I don't. Oh, actually, no. It is the. I think it is the raid one, because you have to charge and fire that one, or you can normal fire it. But it definitely has a niche because you're going to use that, and then you can run the assault armor version with the shotgun. It has the shotgun for the G-Line.
Yeah, so the shotgun it's very enticing. But my argument here is I've run the shotgun build. It is fun. You have to be very careful, because that shotgun, you have to ensure you hit them all. Hit them with all of it. Otherwise, you're because the range was super short. It's like 150, 130 or something. So you basically have to put yourself in a situation where you're that close within range to fight. Mind you, the beam cannons are really good, but keep in mind that you trade off the stopping to shoot for the knockback. What was the Vulcans? The Vulcans only had 30 clips, which is to be fine. You'll get one stagger if you pop a full clip on half the suits at that cost, right? But the beam saber, the beam saber, dual beam sabers are actually really cool. I think they just look really fun.
They look really cool, but it's still priority one.
Right, exactly. I was about to say, as much as you want to utilize this suit, and it has melee combo controller, I think this suit could benefit from having priority 2. Outside of that, I mean, like I said, it has balances. It's a really good feel, but it kind of keeps you in check, so you don't get too greedy or too zealous when it comes to trying to melee a general or even a raid. Imagine that. But the shotgun is something you definitely should practice with. The heavy rifle, like you said, it's base. It's like a heat rate of 50%, right?
Yeah.
Range isn't bad, 325. You can actually shoot that without focus firing, but if you focus or you overheat, you have to wait 18 seconds by base. That's a long time. Again, pointed out, like 20 seconds, 18, that's a long time without have it. Luckily, you do have your other beam cannon and your Vulcans, but still, be very careful shooting your shot with this suit, literally.
Yeah, I think the
'Cause
shotgun does have it's a little more nicer as a last ditch thing, especially if you're getting pressed by somebody to break
Yep.
like at least maneuver armor 1. But that's the thing
Mhm.
too, is like you mentioned before, is you have to have all your pellets hit to actually get that hit, and we know the RNG and GBO2's well, not quite RNG, so I feel like
Yeah.
as far as like consistency goes, the beam rifle is still kind of the, I would say, more consistent out of the two options as far as like results,
agree.
damage output, general engagements, especially if you're not in close range, and just, you know, feel like you're actually being effective rather than like, oh man, I gotta actually get close and get that to work while I'm waiting for my beam cannons to cool down, because it also suffers from the same issue as the GM cannon too, is mitigating that whole heat deal. Essentially.
Mind you, once you become accustomed to the game and you unlock custom parts, you can equip certain things and upgrade your suit so the reloads or cooldowns aren't as long, or you might deal more damage so that can kind of offset you taking that overheat for a few seconds. But again, that's a little bit further in terms of your playing experience. But needless to say, that suit, it is a fun suit. I have rented a handful of times, and it always goes one of two ways: very good or very bad.
Yeah. So, well, I'll say that there's a suit that I haven't had a really bad time with. It's actually probably the most simple support that I've had to play with so far.
All right.
You've probably seen this before, but for those that are uninitiated, this is our number 4 suit, or my number 4 suit, the MS-14C GELGOOG Cannon, 450 native. So I actually rate this a little bit, I would say I rate this significantly higher than the G-Line full custom. The reason being is you have 3 weapons. 3 weapons you have to worry about. The high mobility GELGOOG bazooka, the cannon that instantly overheats, and the wrist missiles that have a very fast reload time. Like 6 to 8 seconds fast.
Yeah, that's pretty fast.
So
That's pretty fast.
So, like, the reason why I feel like this is probably, I mean, if this wasn't whatever cost it was, it's definitely probably one of the easiest things to run with, just because, like, the way you run this is you deal with the overheating aspect. Like, I think the overheat time on the GELGOOG cannon is like 16 seconds or so. I think with the right parts, I think I have it cut down to 12. Which is pretty normal for most, like, stun-based weapons. And
Yeah,
so since,
that's-
like, you're running... What is it? I think if you're running just other stuff, like the ammunition-based things, the reload time is just fine. Like, the bazooka, there's nothing you can really do much about it. It's not...
Right.
I don't think it's really worth it. The big thing is the cannon, just because... by mitigating the overheat time, since it instantly overheats, I think it's like the base power is like almost 3k.
It's 3k base power. That's really good. It hits.
And it has a lot of range too. I actually took it out recently, and like I'm just like, wow, I miss this suit so much. Plus, you got the GELGOOG downswing too, so if you know your swinging angles and somebody's just like, yeah, it's just a support, what is he gonna do? You can follow up pretty quickly too. It's really something that can be, in certain cases, easy to fight if you know what it's capable of, but if you mess up, it can definitely punish you pretty badly too.
Yeah. Between its downswing and between like that cannon, I would build for that cannon personally, because within a couple of shots, it's 450. Unless you're fighting someone and they have like some decent beam resistance, you're going to do like a fourth of their health. You're gonna hinder them, and if you pop them in the legs, you're gonna make someone very mad very early on in their suit's life, because they'll be having to play a certain way, very tricky and whatnot.
And the crazy thing too is that this still holds up at the current build that we have for GBO2, because we have things like the Engage 0 running around.
Yep.
I think is it Engage Zero? I'm thinking of the booster at
Engage
500,
Zero
but I think there's a
booster?
raid. Yeah, that's a 500 raid, but like
Okay.
we've had like crazy raids at 450 running around, and it's just like, wow, this thing's still okay. All right, I'm still alive. Okay.
Yeah.
Like it's just weird because its simplicity is like easy to pick up, but like at the same time it's got that GELGOOG hitbox, and like don't get me wrong, it seems like there's a lot going for it. The thing you have to watch out for is it's big. It's not big like dumb big, but you know, things of your statures do stick out, like the shoulders and other things, and all of it gets hit.
It does have leg buffer, special leg buffer on level 1, but nothing else. Because, like you said, them shoulders, that back, and your hips, it's gonna hurt when you get popped. But I mean, it does have enhanced tackle too, though. Just so you know, it's just a little bit more percentage to travel when you tackle, but you do 50% more damage when you tackle, which is actually really, really fun. Especially within there's been many a times where, you know, someone whiffs or they use their tackle, they stun you, and you're like, okay, crap, they're going to punish me, aren't they? And if you know you can finish them with your tackle, you can just kill them with your tackle, with their dodge or their boost down. So, like, it's, oof, man, that's a good feeling. Because remember, that invuln during tackle can save your life.
Yeah, definitely can. It saved my ass on like other suits, including this one. So, definitely don't forget about that. All right, we're into the top 3. I can hear Vion already like, oh man. So coming in number 3.
Yeah.
Number 3, the RX-78 GPO4 GERBERA. So the reason why I put that up there is, I don't know, I don't think it's like oversimplified. There's something about simple suits that I think make it not only accessible, and this suit is definitely accessible. I believe I think everything that's on my list is second class. So even as a new player, you can buy this. But
yes,
what makes it really cool is the fact that your beam rifle already has super good range. So all you have to worry about is just being effective with it. And then the secondary has, I think it's ammo based as well.
It is. Yep.
Okay. All right. So GPO4, basically it has a long range beam rifle that, if you're really, I would say, decent with your aim, right? You just point, shoot, and if you can follow along with anything that's at distance, it's pretty easy to kind of do decent damage. I know this was pretty big in space, is one of the more recent suits that you're able to, well, fairly recent. Not recent as our Space Assault, but I think this came out like a few months back. It's now usable on ground. And that secondary beam rifle is really great, especially if you got downtime and you're either waiting for that reload time to cook off for your main weapon, and then you do have that secondary to kind of, I don't think it stuns on hit, right? It just builds stun.
So the sub weapon is a beam stun, but the primary long rifle is stun on hit. And I want to reiterate the reason why, like, this is I love this suit. This is one of my favorite OG suits. And it's because it comes with some fun mobility. You feel as if you can always be moving. Why? Because the long range beam rifle you equip with this bad boy, you can shoot it while moving, like just walking, rather than some of the sniper suits you have to stop to shoot. This suit you can just be running and shoot. Mind you, not boosting, but moving and being able to shoot is very, very helpful, especially when you're sniping from afar. And to follow up when you're getting that mid-range lane with the beam rifle is just like icing on the cake. And then, I'm sorry, I really love this suit. Okay. And then, not only does it have melee combo controller, y'all, but you have balancers, you have force injectors, and scouting parallel processing device. Processing device has been a skill I really enjoy, especially if you decide to play more of a passive sniping camping approach instead of staying with your team. Being able to zoom in or scope in without losing your map and radar is really good outside of dealing with the stealth suits. But this suit is something that can immediately go from long range to mid-range to even close range, which I wouldn't recommend, but this you can go between medium and long range very easily, very quick, and I love it. Mind you, I think it is an easy target, given you have the binders in the back, you have the big shoulders, but you do have a large shield, and again, this suit surprisingly, for me, has gotten the job done in many situations. I really, really would suggest this suit coming into GBO2 at 550. This is a very solid, very fun suit.
I would say with what you said so far, I agree. One of the things that people kind of underestimate is that the GERBERA actually has a very nasty melee. Not so much in just the sense of damage, but like the reach is very, very scary.
It's ridiculous. It's
absolutely.
People underestimate it. To this day, people continue to underestimate the reach this thing has. And knowing you have melee combo control, and I love to do this sometimes, you can tell when some people forget it. If you go into mid-range and someone's moving up, and you swing once, like a neutral side swipe, they're going to think you don't have another swing. But when you wind up your downswing, sometimes they are slow to react on that. Mind you, you have to know you're fighting, but when they're slow to react, they're going to get hit by your downswing. You can back up, swap to your sub, pop them about 2-3 times, switch to your main gun, and just prepare for the next stage of the engagement. It doesn't happen all the time, but I have used that numerous of times where you're kind of baiting things out. Or you can even just downswing around the corner. I love downswinging around the corner. People love doing stuff like that. Just get a little sneaky with it.
Absolutely. So it's definitely, like I said, be mindful that, you know, for folks that are watching this is supposed to be kind of beginner friendly. So don't be afraid to like try your own tactics, try your own builds. But Absolutely. I do feel like I think this one, I can't remember if I went with reloaders or overheat. I think I might have had reloaders, perhaps. I couldn't remember what my setup was because I don't run this thing as enough. But I can feel like I do feel like it's one of those suits that is definitely going to be kind of like, for somebody like me that plays a lot of generals, if I'm transitioning to do more support gameplay, this is one of those suits that kind of has some general tendencies, but at the same time, your goal predominantly, as we see with the stats too, is to essentially just shoot and lay down fire, and then like as a very last resort, you know, get those knockdowns, get that melee in, that sort of thing. So, speaking of getting the rolls down, your next suit, the next suit on our list that we're going through is probably another one of your favorites. Number 2 is the RX-178 with the FXA-05D attachment, the Super Gundam. And I know for the longest time in GBO2, this was kind of the, in certain cases and maybe even certain circles, the premier support. Until it got outclassed by everything else. Mainly because the easiest thing to do would be to throw reloaders on this thing and just squeeze out as much damage as you can.
Yep. So Super Gundam, me liking this suit, understate. Meanwhile, I have it literally hanging up on my wall, like a large photo of this, a poster even. But Super Gundam is awesome in my opinion. Simply, now we'll take a step back and compare, right? GBO4, remember, we said you can move and shoot. This suit, you cannot shoot with your long rifle. However, your long rifle is extremely powerful, hard hitting, especially when you charge it up. You hurt people's feelings and you disintegrate them and their generations to come. And now, some people don't use it as much, but some people do. I'd like to play around with it, but it also has a unique sub weapon, the Knuckles dummy balloon, right? You pop this and it'll actually create the dummy on your radar. Sometimes that can throw people for a loop. Sometimes you can throw it and kind of distract someone visually so they can take a look, because even that split second can give you time to take a shot and pop somebody. But another thing that's really delicious about this suit is its missile pods. These missile pods come out very fast. They reload very fast, like a base 10-second reload. And they do so much damage. And the best part is, once you get used to maneuvering in GBR2, you can boost while using these. You can move around while using these. And that is honestly this suit's like kind of hidden tech. Because once you get to a point where someone's closing in on you, swap to your missiles, avert your view, and while they're chasing, they're getting nailed by missiles. So as they're trying to catch up with you, they're going to lose something out of it. A lot of times they're either going to give up the chase or they're going to take up so much damage, they're going to stagger, they're going to stop and go for it. But you've going to do at least a third, if not half of the health. Because again, these missiles are very, very strong with the long rifle to boot. Because as far as biped-like humanoid feet suits in this game, this and GPO4 and like things like GM Sniper 2, they boast some of the longest rifles in the game as supports. Mind you, you do have other supports that can be stationary with cannons, but this is when I'm playing like trenches, I always want to play Super Gundam. Like when I play a map I can snipe, I want to play Super or GPO4. Like there's no argument there. I absolutely love Super Gundam. To this day in this meta, I feel like this is one of my like you said, premier suits. This is one of my suits. I love
What's crazy to think also too is people don't realize with the dummy balloon, the asteroid thing, is you can stun people with that too.
Yep. Especially when people run up on you, pop it real quick, and a lot of times players will forget that it's a thing, or they're like, "Oh, what's this?" They'll shoot it, or they're just running to it. I'm like, "Yeah, you're getting popped for that, dog." Like, there's a lot of super Gundam tech you can learn, right? Especially, I see more super tech being played when it's more like up close. I spoke with people before. They like using it a little bit mid-range, abusing the missiles. I actually use the missiles secondary opposed to my beam rifle. And you can, just to go to show, you can build this more for your beam rifle or for your missiles to spam. Either way, I think it's a very rewarding suit once you master your particular playstyle.
Yeah. Also, I like the fact that you said that you can, send them back generations with the beam rifle because it does have piercing properties as well.
Absolutely. See, that's another thing. For those who are unaware, piercing in this game, you can shoot more than one target. And if you have some juicy enemies lined up or getting real close, if you're patient enough and good at timing stuff, you will be able to hit not one, but two or a million of the enemies. And it like when you do that, oh man, the kind of openings it gives your team and that rush, you're like, oh, one of you guys are going to die today. I'm sorry. Yeah.
You're not sorry.
Absolutely never sorry.
Nope. All right. So our last and final suit in the list. Number 1. I'm pretty sure I'm hearing a certain spider kind of yelling out into the distance already. But we have the full armored FA-78-3 full armored 7th Gundam. Did I say 3? I think that was a typo on my end. But
you said 3. It's all good.
It's supposed to be 7. I was like, 3. Wait, what? Yeah. This is what I get when I'm writing my notes at half asleep. But yeah, the FA-78-7 7th Gundam full armor is, I think, overall probably one to be very flexible, and I think long-term wise, not only decent to learn, but like if you stick with it, it still holds up at its cost.
Yeah, I can actually say I can agree with you. And here's why. I remember the suit came out originally, and I was super hyped. Yep. But as much as I played this suit, it just didn't resonate with me like the other 2 suits prior. But I have seen countless players rise up and put in so much work with this suit. Go back to try it, I'm like, not bad. But again, it comes to preference and play style. This suit is awesome simply because it has so many armament options. You have 4 sub weapons, right? Yeah. You have the leg missile pod, the grenade launcher, the arm beam, and the mega beam cannon. We'll get to that. But you also have the G7 beam rifle, right? While it has a 60% heat rate, its range of damage isn't bad at all, especially if you are staying with your team. This suit can move with the team. Mind you, it's not the super fastest in the world, but it does have decent resistance for being what it is. It feels like a actual full armor. for those who are aware with things, I think it was recent that it got shield tackle level 1. I'm not sure, but I think that was more recent. I could be completely wrong. This thing is it's kind of easy to hit in the legs and the back on the right side, simply because you also have that cannon. I think the cannon is the only thing I don't really care for on this suit, or maybe I just haven't went back to it. But that particular cannon, originally it took too long to charge. It still takes 15 seconds to charge, right?
Yeah,
but
it still takes forever.
Yeah, it still takes forever, but it hits. Like, it hits. But it's a very precise mega beam cannon. So be very mindful if you're trying to use that, because if you focus and you wait 10 seconds, you just burn 25 seconds of a match, up to 30, 35, 40 seconds. And that's crucial, being out of a fight and not dealing damage to an enemy. Mind you, if your team is patient, or if you're able to set up, sure, try it, because you're going to hit whoever you see comes through your reticle. Granted, you don't accidentally shoot the ground or the wall or pole. We've all been there, right?
I've done that.
Yeah, absolutely, and it hurts your soul. I also think the grenade launcher, was that an auto stun on hit?
I think the grenade launchers are stuns. It does have beam gun, so that's the thing about the full armor 7th is what makes it so dangerous. Is the G7 rifle, just like its general, it chonks when you charge those shots. And even if you don't, right, you still have a good enough decent amount of build stun that when you combo off of your other weapons that have relatively fast reloads, like they're not super fast, they're like within 10 to 12 seconds or so, you're constantly cycling through. And that's what makes this suit so dangerous. But like, if you can kind of learn, what combos to cycle through as far as range weapons, and you're generally midlining with this, and I say midline loosely because you're going to be behind your front line, or at least in a spot where you have an opportunity to shoot and follow up while your teammates have somebody locked down. You're basically just chonking away the HP out of the enemy, and that's what this thing does.
And clarification, so the grenade launcher doesn't insta-stun, but the build-up between the beam gun and the grenade launcher, switching between those two alone, you're going to stun someone really quick. And that's not including your main weapon. So like, this weapon, like you said, sticking with your team is a very gross weapon in the capable hands.
And this thing can do that too, yeah.
Absolutely. And even with the missile pods, all you have to stop to shoot, like those hurt. Those hurt. I actually had to boot it up to check. I was just like, okay, let's double check real quick. But even that, this suit is, I won't argue that it's a dangerous suit. I will say that this is the kind of suit that is friendly to newer players, because it still has, I feel like, a mid-range kit that if you become good at cycling weapons, it'll reward you.
Absolutely.
Are there other picks that I prefer personally? Yes, but I think this is a good suit, so I'm not going to knock it for being where it's at. I think it's a cool suit.
Also, one thing to add too is this thing has balancers. So so yeah, if you do get that opportunity, somebody's got their back turned, well, that's a mistake, because that's a free hit right there. So like just like our previous installments of like other supports, like the GERBERA, the GPO4, and some of the other ones that have a similar kit, like that's the thing. It's like, just because it's a shooty suit doesn't mean it can't knock you down. So you kind of have to, you'll see your opportunity when you see it, and it's just like they can't do anything about it. And it's one of those suits that I think, based on the native pool, it does have a decent amount of melee power too, although its primary focus is shooting. So I know some people out there are gonna probably be like, yeah, you should be focusing more on the shooting when you do knock somebody down. It's like, yeah, well, you're gonna figure it out. And that's kind of the nice thing about anybody that's watching this, is you gotta kind of find your own path in essentially figuring this out. We can kind of just show you the guidelines of where to go.
And I just say that was a really good line. You got to find your own path. That was really good. Hell yeah. You're right. I agree. You have to find your own path, because when it comes to playing support suits, there's a lot of different types, like all roles in GBO2. But
Absolutely.
keep in mind, there's different play styles, there's different gimmicks you can take advantage of. But you know, at the end of the day, you want to play. Make sure you're having fun while you're learning a suit. It can be stressful playing a support because a lot of times you're probably going to be the one that's going to get left behind somewhere. And you just gotta take a deep breath, accept it. It's about to happen. And take that time to learn what you could do better or what could happen differently to avoid that. Sometimes it can't happen, can't be avoided. Sometimes it can, but just have fun with supports. I love supports. It's my favorite role in GBO2. Hands down, absolute favorite role. To me, it feels like I'm playing the underdog at times. So I think that's what also it resonates with me. But this is like your list, Alshi.
Yeah.
All right. You know what? I don't have any issues with your list. Because I really think these are really good lists, really good suits for people to come into GBO2 to experience.
Gotcha.
It with.
I was actually gonna laugh because I was gonna say, well, we're at the end of the list there. So did you want to close out with anything? And you kind of just
hey man,
you kind of did it. So.
It's natural. I do want to say thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. It means a lot. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You and I, we collab a lot, but being a part of this is really cool. If you guys have not done so already and you need this channel, make sure you like and subscribe on this channel. You know what I'm saying? This is our boy Alshi-san. This is also an individual who had a massive role in the Gundam Battle Operation 2 event we had this year and last year. And who knows what events we will have in the future. But Alshi, thank you so much for doing stuff like this. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It means a lot to me.
Absolutely. Man. Well, I mean, did you have any last words to say beyond closing us out? Otherwise...
Hey, bruh. Hey, bruh. You already know. Stay out of trouble. And until next time, nothing but love.
Peace.
Peace.